Caloroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Late Night had some fun with the daily use of marijuana now surpassing that of alcohol in the U.S. Wow. Michael Costa said, of course, the rising popularity of weed is a good reminder of the beer industry. They got lazy. They thought they could sit back and relax while Tommy Chong bought up every ad on Twitter. You know, congrats, beer companies. You lost to that well-known, super ambitious, type A, hardworking go-getter, Tommy Chong. Colbert with a great point. Some may be surprised by this, but as a New Yorker, I'm not. I smoke weed every single day, whether I want to or not, on the sidewalk, literally everywhere I go. Yeah, New York City reeks. I hate the smell. Whatever you want to do at home, fine. Go to a party, fine. But just walking down the streets of New York City now, it's impossible. You just smell. It's really, really bad. They got to do something about it. Again, do whatever you want in your house. I just want to walk down the street. Same note on regular cigarettes, too. Colbert joked, this news has alcohol makers worried. They changed their standard disclaimer from drink responsibly to please drink. The Hollywood Reporter and an intelligence firm called Morning Consult asked 2,200 adults in the U.S. how much they trusted various U.S. TV hosts. Your options: a lot, some, not much, not at all, don't know. Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert got about 57% of the audience saying they either had a lot or some trust in both hosts. Seth Meyers, 49%, but it's still higher than folks like Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, and Sean Hannity. They all scored lower than Seth Meyers. In case you're curious, the most trusted newsies in America: Lester Holt, David Muir, Al Roker, Robin Roberts, Michael Strahan, and Anderson Cooper. They all landed 60 to 65%. If you want to break it down by age, millennials and baby boomers like Jon Stewart. Colbert won Gen X. Seth Meyers led Gen Z. Katt Williams spoke about golf. This is a bit of a longer clip, but I really liked it, and Katt Williams makes a lot of sense here. This from golf365.com. Let's listen.
Golf is this thing where 18 times they set you up with a challenge and they put obstacles and hazards in the way. And you have to try to navigate your way safely and try to do as much as you can. But you learn that if you do more than you can't do that. And there will be things that happen. And so all of the things that I like about life in general are on the golf course. I'm saying I drink out here, I smoke out here, I whistle out here, I look at nature, all the things that really mean something to me. Golf requires you to experience all those beautiful things, but then every shot requires you to block all of that out and just focus on the task at hand. And you don't have the opportunity of doing it again.
Sebastian Maniscalco is not concerned with you people that can't take a joke. He told Fox News Digital, I don't edit myself. I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, I don't know, is it worth doing that joke because it might cause A, B, and C? There's a little of that, but I don't know. I've been all over the country, and I feel like the people who are coming to at least my shows are dying to laugh, whether it be appropriate, inappropriate. I mean, I hate to use the word inappropriate, including your own family and yourself. Wasn't done with a mean spirit. It was just kind of pointing out behaviors or idiosyncrasies or oddities that were going on in the neighborhood, and everyone kind of laughed at it. My material tends to be experience-based. I'm going to Universal Studios. I'm going to the kiddie party. I'm going to the school drop-off. I'm doing all these things that happen to be part of my life. And through those experiences, I tend to have a point of view on what I'm seeing at any particular time of day. The only thing you can concentrate on is your own material. So if you see a comedian get a TV show, you see a comedian selling out arenas or whatever, don't let it bother you. Don't let it consume you. The only thing you have control on is writing your own stuff and being the best you could do at what you're doing. Your time will come. Bert Kreischer spoke to WSAV about his fully loaded comedy tour, and he said, it really is a family, you know? Comedy is a tight-knit community of people who have struggled and thrived together. It's the reason I do it. It's like summer camp for me. I've known these people for 25 years, longer than I've known my daughters. And my daughters come on tour as PAs, so they're like their uncles and their aunts. Nepo babies. Bert says, it's my favorite tour I've ever done. It's the reason I'm doing Fully Loaded. We created a system that hasn't been created. I love the sense of community. Look, I grew up in Florida. I love sunsets, partying, and cold beer. So I try to create an environment that I'd love to go to. It does sound like fun. I have not seen that tour. The Lucille Ball Comedy Festival announced their headliners. The festival, August 1st. The headliners include Nicole Byer and Jeff Ross, and unnamed third headliner Third headliner will play at the Northwest Arena on August 3rd and will be announced in mid-June. So that's got to be somebody significant. I have no idea. My spidey sense is telling me it's Nate Bargatze. Why am I saying Nate Bargatze? Just because of my spidey sense. I have no knowledge. There's nothing in this article telegraphing that. That's just the face that came into my brain as I read the sentence. Journey Gunderson is the executive director for the National Comedy Center and said Jeff Ross has been a genre-defining artist for decades before continuing and revolutionizing the art of insult comedy beyond the roast. He's just a fantastic stand-up comedian, an incredible writer, and a genuine champion of the arts past and present, which I love about him. Nicole Byer is a fearless performer with a candid, razor-sharp take that brings the audience along for a fun ride. In addition to the show's 3 headliners, the festival will be incorporating its late-night comedy shows, Lucy Legacy events, and more as part of this year's programming. I should probably take a ride up there. I've made fun of the choice of Jamestown in the past, but it's not that far from where I live. It is out of the way. Like, you don't accidentally drive through Jamestown, New York, but I mean, I could go. Jim Gaffigan needs an intervention, man. He was on the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. I pulled some clips. Jim, the bourbon, it's just not cool. It's just, you don't like cool? Well, apparently Jim doesn't know cool. The rest of us, cool? This just isn't it. It's just not working. I see he's backed off it too. I wonder if he figured out like, oh yeah, no one's into Jim Gaffigan bourbon. Jim discussed with Bourbon Pursuit his wife's take on the whole project.
It's not really a money-making adventure, but it has been fun. I mean, my wife's like, what are you doing? But, what are you going to do?
Now, this is interesting. Jim admitted he was approached on this. Previously, in my humble opinion, this was being spun of, Jim just wanted to make a bourbon. But no, it seems like he was approached. Someone went, if we had a bourbon.
I'm in my late 50s. I know I look like I'm in my mid 50s, but I'm in my late 50s. And I was not always a bourbon or even like a dark liquid kind of guy, but I think during the pandemic, a lot of lockdown, my wife and I, we would do occasionally I'd have an old fashioned. My joke was like, I always felt like I was pretending to be a grown up or that I was pretending I was in a Tennessee Williams play whenever I would have like a mint julep or anything like that. And so, but I slowly switched to just bourbon because I like an old fashioned, but it's a little too sweet for me. And so I just started to love it. And as my wife and I, our kids are teenagers. And so I describe it as we have our occasional bourbon every night. You know what I mean? And so it was this parental bonding thing. And so that kind of coincided with being approached by, some spirit companies to do a celebrity spirit. And I was like, I was shying away from it, but I was like, I kind of like bourbon.
And in this third clip, Jim is, of course, all about the authenticity of Jim Gaffigan bourbon.
It's about authenticity. And I knew if I was going to do something like this, I would want it to be something special. And so even when we eventually went down to Kentucky to pick the barrels, I had my brothers come down and do it. And of course, there's
candy shop there.
Yeah, no, it's like anyone, I'm sure everyone listening to this is just, the bourbon trail or visiting Kentucky is like, to somebody that loves bourbon, it's like Kentucky is Disney World, right? It's just this kind of, it has a charm and the stories and all the research I did, it was so fun because it's also uniquely American, which I kind of love on a lot of different levels. So I don't know. I'm still learning so much. I still have so much to learn, but I love this journey and I feel really good that the product is quality.
I do think he's let it go, though. Believe me, I Googled Jim Gaffigan bourbon the way I used to Google George Lopez tacos, especially when I'm looking for material to pad these things out a little. I haven't seen anything lately. The Hollywood Reporter writes how Seth Meyers accidentally made getting drunk on air an art form. Seth discussed his early years at late night and said, I remember thinking, this is a slightly worse copy of a thing that came before. He was asked if there was any point in the past decade where he didn't feel the confidence of the bosses. Very interesting. Seth said the first year there was definitely at least one memorable conversation. There was a, hey, come out to LA for a quick meeting. And when the meeting was over, there were not garlands at our feet. I will say that I understood what they were asking us to do, but it ended up being the opposite direction of where we went. They definitely weren't saying we think you should lean into long-form political things. It was more, try to be a better show for the current era we're in. This was 2015. It wasn't wrong to suggest that we lean into shorter, viral, popular things. The word not being said here is Jimmy Fallon, which is 2 words. But we left the meeting knowing that we wouldn't be able to do that in a way that was gratifying for us, nor would we be able to make them happy. That was the scariest time for the show. Then the circumstances of the world changed and we became a better show for the moment. I've said this on this podcast before. I feel like this show has had 0 impact. Like, I don't know who's watching it. There's no buzz on it. It just exists because NBC 1230 is a thing. I don't know. Have you watched it? Is this the Bob's Burgers of late night shows? Maybe it's not even on. I haven't checked. Next time the dog wakes me up at 12:30, I'm going to put the TV on and see if this thing is actually on. Good stuff here. The reporter asked, what makes a good and bad guest? Seth said, after 10 years, you should be good enough that there are no bad guests. You should have learned how to pull the best out of anyone. If there is a bad kind of guest, it's one who comes just with material they're going to do no matter what. I hate those guests. You definitely see, it's usually comics, right? You ask them a question and, hey, what color's the sky? It's blue, but I got to tell you, the lines at these airports, right? I hate that. So what do, Seth Meyers? You become the audience that they're not getting. The other thing about 10 years is you learn who you like and who you don't. There's a tier of guests that all of us in late night would take any night, no matter what. And then there's a middle that we all share from. And then there's the sort of guests that are the most interesting ones because they establish how your identity is different from the other shows. For us, it could be a first-time author or a 4th lead on a show that's critically acclaimed but nobody's ever seen. I think the worst guest is a politician. They're so boring. They answer all the questions. They wish you asked them. And they'll answer 2 times in a row if you don't stop them. They also have young staffers who are not plugged into the importance of writing towards a person's specific voice and have given them 3 jokes that are going to bomb. And they're going to tell them no matter what. They asked him about potentially replacing Lorne Michaels. He and Tina Fey are the names that come up as most likely. Seth said, I'm definitely not going to do it, but I never want any of you to stop saying that. Will SNL continue without Lorne? Or do you just not want to be the one that attempts it? Seth, very honest here, says, I think both things can be true. Everybody underestimates what Lorne brings to the show week in and week out, even though I think people estimate it quite highly. Lorne has this invisible hand that gets things done in that building for a show that is unreasonable to even attempt. And I learned so much from watching Lorne, and yet I'm also acutely aware there are things you just can't learn. He talked about the Strike Force 5 podcast from last summer during the writer's strike. It's a credit to Kimmel for putting it together, but also credit to Colbert. When the winds were blowing towards the strike, Stephen was the one who thought, let's all talk and stay on the same page. Let's make sure there's a cohesion with how we're approaching the strike and what we're telling our staffs and what we're going to do for them. That's smart. This one I bumped several times. It just keeps getting bumped. Let me clear this out today. It's good. I just kept kicking it. David Cross in Variety. The source is an interview Cross did with Andrew Santino. Cross talked about Guru Nation, which is a show that Cross and Bob Odenkirk worked up a few years back. He says there was a low-key bidding war between multiple networks. According to Cross, he and Odenkirk wrote about half the 8-episode show about 2 rival cult leaders attempting to out-manipulate each other and plotted out the rest, took it to their new partners at Paramount Plus, and the whole thing got turned down by the streamer. Cross said it got vetoed by the company's marketing and analytics department who didn't want the series or get how to sell it. Cross said they have all the effing power. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. See you tomorrow.